Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your January 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, as the month begins, we have the Sun in a very deep, mysterious place, the eighth house. And that's not the only planet that is hanging out in the eighth. We also have Mercury there. So, that's the conspiracy theorist in you with the Sun there. This is Scorpio's house in the universal chart. So it is all things mysteries. It could be Agatha Christie, but it can also be the secrets of the universe. It can be conspiracy theories. It can be the occult, which sounds really scary, but which just means hidden, like hidden mysteries that relate to religious or spiritual beliefs. And astrology is included in that category along with the tarot. So that might be something that you're studying. And I think that that is probably pretty on point because you've had Pluto in this house for 12 years now. And Pluto is kind of winding down its run during or transit in Capricorn, and it started out there in 2008. Now, this is a reading for Gemini Sun and Rising, and it is a general forecast, which means that it's not going to correspond very neatly in terms of the timing with all Geminis, obviously. And so mileage may vary, but it still has something to offer you because eventually this will come about in your house, in your eighth house, whether it happens to be at the time I say or not. So anyway, Geminis tend to be very airy, being an air sign, and just kind of amusing, witty, all those kinds of things, but there's like a light quality. And the eighth house can have a sense of gravitas, or even we could say heavy, what's the word that I always use? Intense vibes. So just be aware of that. On the 6th, Mars goes into Taurus, and this is the sign right before you. So that's going to be in the 12th house. So Mars has been in a very social area for you in the 11th house, and it's a more friendly angle when it is in the 11th house because in the sign of Aries and in that angle, the sextile, it makes things kind of flow a lot easier. And also the fact that the 11th house is an air house and you're, being ruled by Aquarius, just like you're an air sign, you have an affinity with that kind of thing. The 11th house can be socializing and networking with people. And that's something that you do very easily. The average Gemini. I will say that if you're listening for Gemini Sun, your natal chart can be completely different, and you may have the Sun in the 12th house, and you may be somebody who loves to be alone, and or maybe even the Sun in the 8th house like me, and you're just more solitary, and you're not that necessarily social. So we can't generalize with all Gemini individuals. And that's what makes astrology so fascinating, is that there are many layers to the onion. But we have to generalize when we're doing these kinds of forecasts, obviously. We have to appeal to as many people as possible. And most Geminis will probably be social to one degree or the other. And yet, when Mars goes into the 12th house, it's like you're all dressed up and nowhere to go. You're just kind of, Mars is very active, and the 12th house is being a monk. Imagine a monk who is hyperactive. That's what Mars in the 12th house is. So what can you do about having excess energy or trying to make things happen in a house that's all about contemplation. Well, I think it's something that you probably deal with anyway, because your ruling planet, Gemini, is Mercury. And Mercury, when we talk about the element Mercury, it's quicksilver. And try to, I remember being a kid and a thermometer breaking and seeing mercury and what it looks like. It was fascinating to look at it, but it's something you can't really, grab a hold of. And that's, and, you don't want to get poisoned either. But that's kind of like what Gemini people are like, is that they're hard to pin down. And this can even be, it might be hard for you to pin yourself down and so the 12th house can be a place of contemplation. So maybe there needs to be some way that you can get into that mode of being able to sit still for a few minutes. And Mars can be something even physical that you're doing, like an exercise. The perfect example is Hatha Yoga, because it is physical and yet it activates your spiritual centers. We have the physical organs and, the areas of the body, and there are the chakras, and they're not just 7 chakras, there are minor chakras, which are, when you do acupuncture, all those energy points can be called minor chakras, although I'm not an expert in that. So, the yogic postures can help to calm the nervous system and make a person more capable of sitting still and doing sitting meditation. That was what Hatha Yoga was actually intended for, not just to have a firm booty. Some people think that it's supposed to be these physical benefits, and there can be physical benefits, but it was originally for the purposes of meditation, which the 12th house is all about. On the 8th, we have Mercury. And one more thing about Mars in the 12th house. Watch out for sublimating your anger. Mars can be your anger, so that you don't have it build up. But also, this is a great time to strategize or maybe do things behind the scenes. So whether you're starting your own business, whether you want to debut in something, but you don't want everybody to know about it just yet, you can work behind the scenes. On the 8th, Mercury goes into Aquarius, your ruler, Mercury. And so it's going into a fellow air sign. And this is the 9th house for you. And this can be something connected to higher education. This can be getting your passport ready because you're going to take a long trip or a trip out of the country. And there's going to be a Mercury retrograde here at the end of the month. So if you are doing something that really is important, like a passport where you can't screw up, make sure that you, even before the Mercury retrograde hits, forewarned is forearmed. So, make sure that everything is on point, and then maybe you won't have that kind of snafu occur, because then that may delay your trip. And what else can be the 9th house? Yeah, and just even discussing something with the university. If you're thinking of enrolling in college, people can enroll at all times of the year. That could be the time. Something to do with publishing, 9th house, or even religious matters is 9th house as well. Also on the 8th, Venus goes into Capricorn. And that is interesting because Capricorn is that 8th house. So that Venus in the 8th, boy, that's interesting from the standpoint of really connecting intimately with a partner. Now, Venus is in that 7th house as the month begins. And so for the first 8 days, but even coming from December, you've had Venus in the seventh house, which can be very good for, harmonious marital relations and marriage, also meaning committed partnership if it's not legally ordained. So now you have it in this eighth house. And some people, I mean, if you've been studying the tarot or astrology, maybe you're being able to financially benefit from it, although the eighth house is shared resources in general. And so this can be anything from, this is the house of death, could be money from an inheritance, for instance, but other types of money that's coming from others. On the 13th, we have a new moon at 23 degrees of Capricorn. So we're talking about that area of the shared resources, the occult. One thing I didn't say is that you could benefit if you're with a partner and they get a raise. Venus in the eighth house, you can benefit indirectly from that because it's your partner's money. And the new moon here, though, that suggests something on your end, that this is a new day, that somehow some eighth house matter, this can be the phoenix rising from the ashes as well. If you have felt that, come to think of it, absolutely, because you had a lunar eclipse in your sign in at the end of November, Gemini. So this new moon in the eighth house might be your resurrection and you're a whole new being, so to speak. The very next day on the 14th, Uranus goes direct at 6 degrees of Taurus. So in that 12th house, now it's interesting because I have a late degree of Taurus rising. So a lot of times, like a YouTube reading, the Gemini readings are more appropriate for my, transits and stuff. And so this is, and I actually have a big 12th house. So this is going to fall in my 12th house, even though I have Taurus rising. So for some of you, this may actually be, but the reason I'm saying this is that this can be your 12th house. But also for some of you, this may actually fall in the 11th house. But for those who it falls in the 12th house, the earlier degree Geminis, this is going to be, this is kind of a strange transit to begin with, Uranus in the 12th house. And I'm still trying to decide on my end of things how it is manifesting for me. Uranus has been in Taurus for a couple of years now. I think something like that. And it will be for several more years in Taurus. And as such, it relates to, in the 12th house, Uranus can be kind of spontaneous spiritual experiences. Now, have I had any of these? I can't really say just like in a very affirmative way. I could say maybe, possibly, nothing that I can just really talk about confidently. Uranus can be sudden things, surprising things. 12th house can be spiritual matters. And so, for instance, the awakening, I can think of a spiritual awakening as being that connection between the 12th house and Uranus, because a suddenness, electricity connected to Uranus, and the Kundalini, I think, is connected to Uranus, and 12th house, certainly that kind of buried, the Kundalini is, it gets activated. And it's not something that I think everybody just naturally has at the same time. I mean, somebody's spiritual awakening might come at a very early age or later in life, who knows? And, but from the 12th house, it might be this karmic kind of a thing. Maybe it's meant to be at a certain time that you have this awakening. And also anything that can relate to like maybe sudden changes in fortune, if you will. Not talking reversals in fortune, but just events, fated events that have a karmic tinge to them, but seem very like coming out of left field. Just speaking as somebody who has had this for a long time, because even in Aries, it was in my 12th house. I can't really, put my finger on how this has manifested, but, you know, I'm sure, since I started doing this on YouTube, that it happened during that time, and Uranus can be about technology. So maybe it's something to do with, for you, if you are interested in spiritual topics, taking to some form of technology to share, to be that teacher, that communicator that Gemini people naturally are, and using technology to do that. So it could be something along those lines. But it's going to form a direct conjunction with the transiting Mars and Taurus. And so I think of that sense of liberation, and maybe it will be related to your karmic past. And maybe it has something to do with anger and freeing yourself from, I think in general, Gemini people don't really like to deal with strong emotions like anger. I think unless you have Mars in Aries, or you have the moon in Aries or something like that, where it is naturally very hot-headed, I think in general you prefer to be more detached. And perhaps this is some liberating force that's coming from, it doesn't even have to be about anger, but just that feeling of, I'm free. I'm free from my karma. It no longer governs me. So that's all I can really say about that. But I just think that I'm really looking forward to this in general for all of us. I think for humanity's sake. On the 19th, the sun goes into Aquarius. So we're talking about that ninth house, very expansive, very, broad-minded, good for academia, good for, just higher education, the higher mind in general. Maybe this is when you travel. On the 28th, full moon at 9 degrees of Leo. Leo is your third house. Maybe more Geminis will actually have this in your second house of earned income, and that could be a boost to your finances. If you're born from 0 to 9 degrees of Gemini, this will be in your third house, the house that you rule. And this could be finishing some kind of blog or other type of writing project. This can be maybe you're having some kind of realization about a sibling. The third house can be siblings, and it might not be pleasant if you have, or maybe if you got more money and some kind of an inheritance earlier in the month, they may, something may come where you have to, stop communication with them, but it doesn't have to be something bad. Maybe you realize that you always got preferential treatment, and you vow that you're going to give them more of your inheritance. It could be something like that. But this can just be some sort of spiritual download. Full moons can be very intuitive, and this is the house of the mind. On the 30th, we have your ruler Mercury going retrograde at 26 degrees of Aquarius in that ninth house. So hopefully your travel plans won't get somehow delayed, because Mercury can also rule travel. But ninth house, this can also be with Mercury paperwork, like I said, passport, or if you're trying to enroll in college, there's some kind of issue with that. and you have to get it straightened out. Mercury retrogrades are 3.5 weeks. It's not, Mercury is very quick moving energy through a particular house and even retrograding. But it does indicate that, when Mercury goes retrograde, that whatever sign it's going retrograde in this case Aquarius, it's going to spend more time in that area. So the ninth house is something to really look at, especially in the second half of the month for you, because there might be some significance with that in particular. So if you're like, it's a great time if you've written a book, Gemini, to do proofreading, if you're trying to, publish it or something. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this, Gemini. If you would like a personal reading, I'm going to be launching something that is a special with which is I already have like a combination reading with a full length natal chart interpretation with a full-length tarot reading. And now I'm going to be launching full-length transit readings, like 2 chart readings, one for just the interpretation and one for the transits, for a special price. And so you can check out my new offering about that and my other types of readings. I have a combination natal chart interpretation and transit reading that is, a shorter amount of time as well, and other types of readings, all at the link below. Thank you for listening. Have a great month. Take care. Bye.